Good evening. I am Vice Mayor Jennifer Wise, and welcome to the February 24th special and regular City Council meeting. This is a hybrid meeting with City Council, city staff, and members of the public participating virtually and in City Council chambers. Please note public comment speaker time may be limited if there are more than 10 speakers on an item. We also ask that if you are in person, please submit your speaker cards for all agenda items to the city clerk at this time. Tonight, we have in-person interpretation services available. Please visit the table in the back for a headset. For those in virtual attendance, please note that there is a globe icon near the hand feature on your screen. Our interpreters this evening are Angelica Villagran de Gonzalez, Amada Sosa, Maya Fonseca, and Angela Thielen. Thank you all so much for your time and services today.
Buenas noches. Si usted necesita interpretación en persona, por favor pase a la mesa de atrás por su equipo para que se lo podamos proporcionar. Si usted está en Zoom, por favor haga clic en el icono del mundo donde podrá obtener interpretación en español. Los intérpretes esta noche son Amada Sosa, Maya Fonseca, Ángela Thielen y su servidora Angélica Villagrande González.
I would like to introduce City Council members and staff present. In the City Council chambers are myself, Vice Mayor Jennifer Wise, City Council members Drew Combs, Jeff Schmidt, and Cecilia Taylor. Mayor Betsy Nash will be joining the meeting later this evening. Staff present include City Manager Justin Murphy, Assistant City Attorney Mary Wagner, and City Clerk Judy Herron. City Clerk Herron, would you please provide instructions to the City Council and members of the public on how the meeting will proceed?
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor Wise, and again, welcoming everyone to our February 24th City Council meeting. For members of the public who wish to provide comment on an item on tonight's agenda, after the mayor calls for comment on that item, if you are in person, you can complete a speaker card, return that here to me. If you're virtual, engage that hand feature. Calling in, press *9 at that time. I did also want to make a brief announcement that we are recruiting for all of our advisory bodies. This will be done. More information actually is available at menlopark.gov/commissions, or you can reach out to the city clerk's office. And my last announcement is our City Council annual priority setting meeting is scheduled for March 21st, and we are accepting all public input forms through March 4th. Those are available online at menlopark.gov/priorities. We also have hard copies available at different city facilities, and you can always contact the city clerk's office for any assistance with those. That concludes my instructions and announcements. Vice
Wonderful.
Mayor, you may
Thank you.
continue.
Thank you so much. So next we have closed session. City Clerk Herron, will you please call for public comment for closed session item C1?
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to provide comment on our closed session item C1, conference with labor negotiators, if you are in person, return that speaker card. Virtual, engage the hand feature. Calling in, press *9 now. Final call for public comment on closed session item C1. Seeing no hands or cards, Vice Mayor, you may continue.
Wonderful, thank you. The City Council will now adjourn to the closed session and reconvene at approximately 6:15 p.m.
Hello, I am Mayor Betsy Nash, and we are reconvening the February 24th special and regular City Council meeting. This is a hybrid meeting with City Council, city staff, and members of the public participating virtually and in the City Council chambers. Please note, public comment speaker time may be limited if there are more than 10 speakers on an item. We also ask that if you are in person, please submit your speaker cards for all agenda items to the city clerk at this time. Tonight, we have an in-person interpretation services available. Please visit the table in the back for a headset. For those in virtual attendance, please note that there is a globe icon near the hand feature on your screen. Report from closed session. I would like to introduce Assistant City Attorney Wagner for a report out from the closed session.
Thank you, Mayor Nash. The council met in closed session on item C1 on your agenda. There are no reportable actions this evening.
Thank you. Agenda review. Agenda review provides advance notice to members of the public and city staff of any modifications to the agenda. To ensure staff is available and prepared, will the City Council have any questions or comments on consent calendar or informational items? Great. City Clerk Karen, how many speaker cards have you received for I1, I2, I3, and J1?
Thank you, Mayor Nash. For I1, I have one current speaker card. For I2, I have one current speaker card. I3, I have 0 speaker cards, and J1, 0 speaker cards at this time.
All right. Thank you. So I think we will leave the order as is. Public comment. Under public comment, the public may address the City Council on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the City Council once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. Speaker time will be limited if there are more than 10 speakers. You are not required to provide your name or city of residence, but it is helpful. The City Council cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore, the City Council cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under public comment other than to provide general information. City Clerk Karen, please call for general public comment.
Thank you, Mayor Nash. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to provide comment for an item that is not on tonight's agenda, if you are in person, return that speaker card. Virtual, engage a hand feature. Calling in, please press *9 now. We are currently at 4 speakers. So this is the final call for public comment for items not on tonight's agenda. Okay, our first speaker will be Will Ausler, followed by Nick.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Will Osler. I serve on the Housing Commission, but tonight I am speaking in my capacity as an individual resident of District 3. I'm here to comment on recent reporting regarding Quimby Act fees being applied to Senate Bill 9 lot splits. I'm not qualified to comment on the legal issues, and I won't. My comment is solely about policy. Does a 6-figure fee on an owner performing an SB 9 lot split serve our city's interests? I think the answer is no. The vast majority of Menlo Park is zoned only for single-family housing. Most of the land is already built out. As a result, building infill housing is critical to producing and maintaining housing stock. That's reflected in our housing element, which has a strong focus on ADUs. Given the deepening severity of the housing crisis in San Mateo County, I believe we should continue to view our housing element as a floor, not a ceiling. ADUs are an ongoing success story for Menlo Park, but SB 9 fills a different and vital niche. It creates homeownership opportunities. Because SB 9 requires the applicant to live on site for 3 years and prohibits the displacement of existing tenants, it is an excellent tool for creating stable, resident-owned infill housing that preserves neighborhood character. In 2024, Menlo Park homeowners showed a high desire to contribute to our housing supply, resulting in around 60 ADU permits being issued. In that same period, we saw only 2 SB9 projects permitted. I'll be waiting for the final 2025 numbers to come out, but available info suggests that it will be similar. One reason that might be the case is the disparity in park fees. If a homeowner builds a new building as an ADU, they will not be charged these fees. But if that same owner uses SB9 to build that same small home on a split lot, potentially granting a new resident the stability of home ownership, the city hits them with a large bill, despite the fact that both projects have the same impact on our parks. By my estimation, a $127,000 fee, like the one reported, accounts for somewhere around 8% of total project costs. That's a substantial barrier keeping individual homeowners, the very people SB9 was designed to enable, from participating in solving our housing crisis. In a climate of high interest rates and rising construction costs, I believe the city should be removing barriers, not creating hurdles. I urge the council to agendize a review of this fee structure to ensure SB9 can actually function as intended, a tool for resident-led growth that strengthens our community without displacement. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Nick, followed by Shannon.
Hi there. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Nick Pataki. I'm a resident of Belhaven, and I'm here to speak in support of the proposed bicycle lane on Pierce Road, agenda item I2. I strongly support.
Pause.
Sorry.
Yes. So right now we're doing public comment for items not on our agenda. So I'll have you hold onto your comment until we get to I2. Is that correct?
That's fine. I'll have my wife will take over for me then. Thank you so much. Do you know how long that will be? I'm sorry to interrupt.
I would
Half
say
hour?
maybe 10 minutes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
My pleasure. Okay, we'll go to our next speaker, Shannon, followed by Pam Jones. Shannon, are you able to engage your microphone at this time? Okay. Shannon, I will return to you. We're going to move on to Pam Jones.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and staff. Pam Jones, resident of the Belhaven neighborhood in Menlo Park. I am associated with several organizations. I am speaking for myself. I want to just commend the city and the staff for all the efforts into providing regular street cleaning on Mondays. As a community, we continue to attempt to keep the streets clear of cars and to also do our part with keeping the gutters clean. But it is really encouraging when we know now that the street sweepers will be coming by. I also want to acknowledge that it was that we were informed that a dumpster would be provided by the city at the end of the month so that we will be able to do community cleanup, and hopefully those people who have furniture will themselves that they will put it in these dumpsters. But it is when we are working together like this, the community and the city, that that we have a better place to live. Thank you.
Okay, going to be moving back down to Shannon. Shannon, are you able to engage a microphone? We're not able to hear you at this end. Okay. So unfortunately, Shannon, we're not able to hear you through the microphone. You can always email comments to our city council at city.council@menlopark.gov. Okay, and with that, I am seeing no further hands or cards. Oh, Shannon has re-raised their hand. Let me see if we're able to have Shannon engage the mic.
Hi, I apologize. I'm using my spouse's computer and I'm like, why are they calling for Shannon? I intend to speak on subject K2. Can I have an approximate time as to when that might be doable?
Unfortunately, I don't think I can gauge the timing for informational items as they do come at the end of the meeting.
Okay, I'll just hang out.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So now seeing no further hands or cards, Mayor Nash, you may continue.
Thank you. Consent calendar. Under the consent calendar, the city council may take action to approve routine business items in one motion unless a city council member, city staff member, or a member of the public requests that an item be discussed or continued to a later date. City Clerk Herron, do we have any public comments on the consent calendar?
Thank you, Mayor Nash. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to provide comment on item H1, City Council meeting minutes, or H2, the review of the Planning Commission stipend program, if you're in person, return that speaker card. Virtual, engage that hand feature. Calling in, press *9 now. This will be the final call for public comment on our consent calendar items H1 and H2. Seeing no hands or cards, Mayor Nash, you may continue.
Thank you. Is there a motion and a second on the floor to approve the consent calendar?
Thank you. I do have a motion by City Councilmember Taylor and a second by Vice Mayor Wise to approve the consent calendar. Any further City Council question or discussion? Seeing none, please proceed with voting. And the motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Regular business. Under regular business, the city council considers recommendations from city staff on policy matters or administrative actions that require city council approval. The first regular business item is I-1, consider applicants and make an appointment to fill an unexpired vacancy on the East Palo Alto Sanitary District Advisory Committee. Here to introduce the item is Deputy City Clerk Sarah Sandoval.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council. For item I-1, staff recommends that the City Council consider applicants and make an appointment to fill an unexpired vacancy on the East Palo Alto Sanitary District Advisory Committee. I'll provide some brief background and a brief introduction, and then we can go on to public comment and nominations. The East Palo Alto Sanitary District, or EPASD Advisory Committee, functions as a subsidiary body to the EPASD's governing body, including advising East Palo Alto, both the City Council and the EPASD Board on operation and maintenance agreements, annual budgets, capital improvement planning, and service rates. This committee is a 6-member body with 1 seat representing EPASD customers who reside in Menlo Park. On January 7th, the Menlo Park representative to the EPASD committee resigned from the seat, and the City Clerk's office began recruitment from January 12th through February 13th. And received 2 applications, which are included in your staff report. We will conduct this appointment in the same manner that we conduct advisory body appointments, with the number of nominations being limited to the number of vacancies. In this instance, that would be 1. The candidate that receives a majority of nominations will be appointed, and if no candidate receives a majority, we will continue to ask for nominations until a majority is achieved. We will take nominations verbally by roll call using alphabetical order by legal first name, with the mayor going last. Or if it is the preference of the City Council, we can collect nominations by any alternate method that the City Council directs. That concludes my introduction. Happy to take any questions or to call for public comment.
Please call for public comment.
Of course. Thank you, Mayor Nash. If we have anyone joining us this evening who would like to make a public comment on item I-1, if you are here in the City Council chambers, please fill out a speaker card at this back table and return it to the clerk's desk. If you are joining us online via Zoom, please use that raised hand feature in the bottom of your screen, or if you are calling in from a landline or cell phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. One second. Okay, this will be our final call for public comment on item I-1. We have 1 speaker. Just one moment while I pull up our timer. Our first speaker will be Jagan Subaya.
Okay, hello, my name is Jagan Subaya, and I am an applicant for the vacant EPASD Advisory Board seat to represent Menlo Park. First, I would like to start by reminding everyone why we are here. And to do that, I'd like to rewind the tape a little bit. Almost 12 months ago, I applied for this same vacancy as one of basically, I don't remember exactly, but 2 applicants. I attended the council meeting in person, summarizing the diverse list of qualifications and accomplishments that I described in the written application in my 2 or 3 minutes that I had to speak. The other applicant didn't turn up at all. And there was a rumor that she was having possibly trouble with Zoom, but I don't know which explanation was worse. Nevertheless, she wasn't here, but she was selected. And now 12 months into a multi-year appointment, that position is now vacant. Long story short, the substance of my application remains the same. And as recommended by Councillor Combs, I have continued to engage in local public matters to demonstrate my interest in local governance and public service. In fact, I am a co-owner of 8 properties, including 6 of which are homes in the Menlo Park portion of the EPASD area. With this in mind, and after being rejected, I joined the O'Connor Cooperative Water Company that provides running water from local wells to 300 plus homes in the same area. And as a board member, I dealt with a major flooding event caused by one of their pipes bursting. That said, however, given the preference it seems for familiarity and comfort over merit, I am aware that I am probably going to be passed over in favor of the other applicant, who apparently sits on the library committee and one other, despite moving in and probably joining the community only just a few years ago. By contrast, I am a proud Menlo Park local, born at Stanford Lucile Children's Hospital, who attended Laurel, Oak Knoll, Hillview, and MA, and then UC Berkeley. In fact, I would just pull out one small piece of information from my application, and that is by age 4, I had already hiked the entire length of the Hetch Hetchy watershed, reservoir watershed, as the youngest person since John Muir, covering 11,000 feet in altitude. I leave the name of the trail out as a mystery because I don't even think the other applicant might know where it is. The only other thing that has changed for me is that one of my many business projects is one of the world's leading water recycling technology companies. And in the last 12 months, given the success of our technology, we have received hundreds of orders for use in places and hotspots like Ukraine and Gaza across the world, including from the UN. So I do have relevant experience in these matters, but I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Mayor Nash, that is our only speaker on this item. Please continue.
Thank you. I would like to open now for City Council questions and discussion. All right. I will note that the other candidate, Vamsi Velapuga, did send a note to us this afternoon saying that he has childcare, was not able to attend because of childcare, and gave us his comments. Deputy City Clerk Sarah Sandoval, would you please proceed with the vote?
Happy to. Thank you, Mayor Nash. So starting with City Councilmember Combs.
For a vote. Yeah, I actually will provide a comment before voting. I appreciate and thank both applicants for applying. In this community, it's great that we have a bounty of human capital that's willing to serve in a volunteer capacity for the for our commissions and other boards. I do, in the spirit of the moment and offering feedback, do want to provide some feedback here. I know that the applicant who's not here, Vamsi, provided additional information in an email he sent, but I did find his application a little bare. And I do want to provide that feedback publicly. And the other applicant, Jagan, who is here, I felt, to be frank, that the the application was not narrowly tailored to what we might be looking for a signal in terms of who to appoint to the board. And I do think it's important to give this feedback. These are public roles, and I do think it's important to give that feedback publicly. I also have to take into account that, like, the person that we are asking or appointing is representing the city. And so how you show up here is how I'm getting signal that you're going to represent the city. You don't represent the city by disparaging and calling out other people. You represent the city, or it shows how you're representing yourself by saying what is great about your candidacy. And that should be all the air that you take up. And so it's hard for me, I'm going to be frank, to appoint you to a board to represent the city when you took some portion of your time before us to disparage other people. And so I don't mean that to call you out publicly, but again, these are public roles, and there's no other way in which I can do it. And we've had a number of conversations. I have encouraged you to apply before, but I do have to see the signal that I think that you ultimately will represent the city appropriately. And I did not see it in the application, and I did not see it in the comments. And I'm sorry for that, but that is just where we are. And so I would nominate Vamsi Velagapudi.
Thank you, City Councilmember Combs. City Councilmember Taylor.
Thank you, Assistant Clerk. I will be voting for Vamsi Velagapudi.
Thank you. City Councilmember Schmidt.
Also, Vamsi Velagapudi.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Wise.
Vamsi Velagapudi.
And Mayor Nash.
Vamsi Velagapudi.
Okay. Thank you very much. The City Council has appointed Vamsi Velagapudi to the East Palo Alto Sanitary District Advisory Committee. The City Clerk's office will reach out to Vamsi for next steps and connect them with the City Clerk of East Palo Alto. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do want to echo what Councilmember Combs said, and I appreciate the comments. Please do feel free to reach out to us if you do have questions about it. And thank you for serving on the O'Connor Water Board. So with that, we will move on to the next item, which is I2, consider and adopt a resolution authorizing the installation of a no stopping zone on the south side of Pierce Road between Carlton Avenue and Del Norte Avenue. Here to introduce the item is Associate Transportation Planner Cassandra Cortez.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council. Thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Cassandra Cortez. I'm an Associate Transportation Planner with the City of Menlo Park. And tonight I'll be presenting to Council to consider and adopt a resolution that authorizes the installation of a no stopping zone on the south side of Pierce Road between Carlton and Del Norte Avenue. Tonight's agenda for this item includes 1, project background, 2, an overview of the project area, followed by an overview of the proposed no stopping zone, the recommendation received from the Complete Streets Commission, City Council action, and lastly, next steps for this effort. For some more background and context on Pierce Road is a two-way local street that is located within the Belhaven neighborhood. There are no designated bicycle facilities existing on Pierce Road, but there are sidewalks on the north side of Pierce Road. Pierce Road also has existing speed humps and unstriped parking on both the north and the south side. And Pierce Road also provides connection and access to local destinations in the Belhaven community, including the Belhaven Community Campus, the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Peninsula, Belhaven School, and the US 101 Rainwood Bicycle and Pedestrian Overcrossing. The Transportation Master Plan identified removing a general purpose travel lane from Pierce Road to accommodate a one-way street with separated bike lanes. However, implementing a one-way street requires extensive evaluation and updates to the local circulation pattern and is outside the scope of this effort. Pierce Road is scheduled for resurfacing in 2026. And when resurfacing, staff consider a complete streets approach to provide improved facilities for people biking. The proposed project area is on Pierce Road from Carlton to Del Norte Avenue. And through resurfacing, the improvements would likely include a Class 2 bike lane southbound and a Class 3 shared lane with both people driving and people biking northbound. To provide these improved bicycle facilities, parking removal is required due to limited roadway space on Pierce Road. Staff is proposing to remove an estimated 160 parking spots from the south side of Pierce Road that is along the US 101 sound wall. Staff conducted parking observations and concluded that there would be adequate parking availability on the north side of Pierce Road to accommodate the observed demand. There's an estimated 110 parking spaces that is available on the north side of Pierce Road, and staff observed 28 and 48 cars parked on Pierce Road on 2 separate days and times. On January 14th, the CSC provided a recommendation to City Council to approve the no stopping zone. And additionally, CSC provided direction to staff to explore the use of flexible posts or bollards instead of extending the speed humps into the bike lane to prevent vehicle encroachment. And at this time, staff are not recommending implementing flexible posts or bollards on Pierce Road for a couple reasons. The first being that the city's design standards is to extend the speed humps into the bike lane from driving into the bike lane. Additionally, Pierce Road is a narrow street and doesn't have the sufficient width to accommodate the flexible posts and bollards. And lastly, this would pose as a maintenance concern in keeping the bike lane free of debris. Staff is recommending that City Council adopt a resolution that authorizes the installation of a no stopping zone on the south side of Pierce Road between Carlton and Del Norte Avenue. In early 2026, the 2026 resurfacing project bid was released. And after awarding the contract, the next steps would be the implementation of the resurfacing and the striping of the bicycle facilities in summer 2026. And that concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. City Clerk Karen, do we have any public comments on this item?
Thank you, Mayor Nash. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to provide comment on item I2, the installation of a no stopping zone on the south side of Pierce Road. If you are in person, return that speaker card. Calling in, press *9. Virtual, engage that hand feature now. Currently have 2 speakers, so this will be the final call for public comment on item I2. Okay, we are up to 3 speakers. And our first speaker will be Sally Cole, followed by Nick.
Good evening. This is Sally Cole from the Complete Streets Commission, and we appreciated at our meeting, we voiced support and thanks to staff for taking the opportunity while they were resurfacing Pierce Road to look at ways to make that road safer for bicyclists. That's appreciated in part because the other access roads like Pierce that are nearby, Ivy and Newbridge, are quite heavily trafficked with cars. And so this is a road with lower residential traffic that bicyclists can use. One thing I just wanted to flag for the council going forward is that in this meeting with the commission, one of the things that came up, as Cassandra mentioned, is that there is a maintenance issue currently citywide that is preventing us, or at least giving us pause or a constraint to installing protected bike lanes where we think they might be needed in and around Menlo Park. And that is that the standard street sweepers can't accommodate bollards or other protective measures to protect a bike lane. They can't work around them and keep the bike lane clean. So that came up in our meeting, and we had a good conversation with staff about it. I did some research online and discovered that there are a lot of Bay Area cities that are dealing with this. And in fact, Sunnyvale passed a master plan for transportation in 2020, committing to installing protected bike lanes on their major corridors, which was 17 miles of road. And to this day, they've only installed protected bike lanes on less than a mile of their roads. One of our commissioners mentioned at the meeting that there's some communities, Palo Alto included, and also South San Francisco, that have looked into and installed flexible delineators, which seem to work with cars and traffic. So the reason I just wanted to flag this tonight is I know that we are looking to ways to increase traffic impacts in Menlo Park. I think that increasing biking is obviously an important solution to that. And of course, we have major corridors that are coming up that we're looking at to make safer, like Willow Avenue and potentially El Camino Real. So as we look at those, I want to make sure the city is equipped to install protected bike lanes when the city council agrees and we believe they're necessary. And we probably need to address this issue of this maintenance issue around street sweepers before we can do that. So I hope that the city council will support the staff and also the commission to researching those options when that need becomes available. Thank you.
Next speaker will be Nick, followed by Pam Jones.
Hi there. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Apologies for the mix-up on the public comment earlier. My name is Nicholas Pataki. I'm a resident of Belhaven, and I'm here to speak in support of the proposed bicycle lane on Pierce Road. I strongly support the installation of this bicycle lane. Pierce Road is an important route for cyclists, especially for those accessing the US 101 Ringwood overcrossing, and the improvement is long overdue. I do have 3 requests regarding the implementation of the project, though. First, I would urge the city to install physical barriers, whether bollards, flexible posts, or some other protective elements, to create a truly protected bike lane separated from vehicle traffic. We believe a painted stripe alone won't provide the safety and protection our cyclists need. And the maintenance issue that the prior speaker brought up is new to me. I think clearly some more conversation is needed here. And I understand that constraint. Second, I asked that the bicycle lane be placed on the west side of Pierce Road. This is along the freeway. This location would actually help address a persistent problem that we in Belhaven have been facing for a long time, which is illegal dumping along the highway sound wall. It's a persistent and pervasive issue that the residents, I just don't really know how we can control it without active police 24 hours a day sitting there. But I hope that placing active bicycle infrastructure there would actually naturally discourage people from using that area as a dumping ground. And then third, since we're undertaking the improvement along the highway sound wall, I'd ask that the city incorporate additional tree plantings. This would serve the dual purpose of beautifying the street a little bit more and then also provide some additional sound buffering for the neighborhood. So thank you for considering the requests. I appreciate the city's commitment to improving our bicycle infrastructure and really looking forward to seeing this project completed. Thank you.
And our next speaker will be Pam Jones.
Good evening, and thank you, Pam Jones again. And I concur with the previous speaker regarding the sound wall side of the Pierce Road, that the parking be eliminated from there. I think it will reduce the amount of illegal dumping because at least people will be more visible. And with cameras up there, we'll be able to identify who those people are. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further hands or cards. Mayor Nash, you may continue.
Thank you, and thank you to the public speakers. I would like to now open for City Council questions and discussion. Vice Mayor Wise.
Thank you. Just a quick question to staff. Could you please clarify from the public comments we just received if it is possible to put the bike lane on, sorry, was it the north side that the residents were hoping for, or does it have to stay on the south side?
The proposed bike lane is in alignment with the public comment along the US 101 sound wall.
So any comments on the viability of a street sweeper or something for the maintenance? What are others, like some of the other cities doing? Not specifically for this, but more generally.
Sure. Good evening, council members. Azalea Mitch, Public Works Director. We have been evaluating the feedback from the Complete Streets Commission. First, we're in the process of developing criteria. Now, we need to assess where the installation of flexible bollards or some sort of sturdier barrier would be most required in terms of criteria. We're looking at developing that to assess volume of vehicles and where they should be recommended for installation. In terms of the maintenance, it is a real challenge. I think if you drive around areas where you see debris and it's just very difficult. So part of that assessment not only is assessing where, from a criteria perspective, where they make the most sense, but also working with our maintenance team to figure out what tools, what equipment is needed so that we can do a good job maintaining them clear. That's been our challenge right now, given that those types of installations do require a lot more maintenance.
Thank you. So, Councilmember Schmidt.
Thank you, Mayor Nash, and thanks to staff for putting this together. I had a question, then just a comment to build on the public comment. The one thing that jumped out at me in the report was that we had 2 observation periods to evaluate the street parking relatively close together, and it felt like they were very limited. So that gives me a little bit of a pause on do we typically only do very limited observations on things like parking impact, or would we normally do much more of that? Or I'm just curious because that was one thing that jumped out is we only did it twice. And so I just love to hear more about how we typically handle that.
Parking observations are usually conducted on a project-by-project basis. For this specific instance, this initial observation was around 5:30 a.m., so meant to capture before folks are going to work and going to school. And the other one was more in the later afternoon, meant to capture that those council people are home from work and school. So specifically, there are 2 different periods before people leave for their daily activities and when they come back.
Definitely clear. Maybe I'll ask the question a different way. Given that people often, this is one of their major concerns about adding bike lanes, would that be stretched out over a period of weeks? So would you repeat that, 3 more times over a period of weeks? I understand it's project by project, but 2 times for the level of impact felt kind of limited to me. So I think I'm just curious, would we do that like 3 more times in a typical project, or twice just felt pretty thin? So.
Sure, absolutely. Great comment. So as Cassandra said, it's on a case-by-case basis. We actually have taken quite a few informal readings in terms of our site visits. On larger projects, the counts can be either done professionally, they can be done over the period of a week or weeks to assess also parking capacity elsewhere. Given our observations here during our visits, we felt that this was appropriate and that the number of vehicles that we did observe unofficially were confirmed by the formal counts that were taken during the peak time hours. So there was consistency there.
But thank you. That in my office hours, that's usually one of the major comments I seem to get pretty consistently is parking impacts relative to street improvement. So thank you. That helps. And I just wanted to voice support for the other side of the street, and also the comment about additional tree plantings as well. If those were options that we could consider as we make these improvements, I definitely voice some support for that.
Councilmember Combs.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nash. I'm supportive. I do want to call out, because Councilmember Schmidt, one of the things I am and have been historically concerned about is as we implement bike improvements is the impact on parking. Here I am comforted that like there is parking on the other side of the street, and so that's why I wasn't as concerned about that. And it is on the side of the street where people are at. And so, but normally I would be very much aligned with you about do we feel that we have a really decent count of parking volume, but again, there will be parking on the other side of the street.
So is there a motion and a second on the floor?
So we do have a motion on the floor by City Councilmember Taylor and a second by City Councilmember Combs to adopt a resolution authorizing the installation of a no stopping zone on the south side of Pierce Road between Carlton Avenue and Del Norte Avenue. Any further City Council question or discussion? Seeing none, please proceed with voting. And the motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Regular business, the final regular business item tonight is I3, consider and adopt a resolution to amend the fiscal year 2025-26 budget. Here to introduce the item is Assistant Administrative Services Director, Fannie Lay.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council members. We're here tonight to present the proposed mid-year amendments to the fiscal year 2025-26 budget. These amendments reflect updated revenue estimates, actual expenditure trends, and operational changes that have occurred since the budget has been adopted. Mid-year amendments are a standard part of our fiscal management process and help ensure that appropriations remain aligned with current conditions, council priorities, and service delivery needs. I have with me our Finance and Budget Manager, Jared Hansen, as well as Adrian Patino, our Management Analyst too. Tonight, I'll begin with an overview of the proposed budget amendments. Next, I'll review the impact to the general fund reserves, including how these changes affect our reserve levels. I'll then provide a high-level preliminary 5-year outlook. This is not a detailed financial model, but rather a directional snapshot highlighting key economic indicators, revenue and expenditure trends, and broader considerations that may influence the city's fiscal position over the next several years. After that, I'll briefly summarize our current grant funding portfolio. Finally, I'll outline the action requested of Council this evening, including adoption of amendments and any policy direction you may wish to provide. Before moving into the proposed mid-year amendments, I'd like to briefly recap appropriations approved by Council following adoption of the fiscal year 2025-26 budget via separate Council actions for general fund. Since that time, Council has authorized a total of $697,648 in additional general fund appropriations related to bargaining unit classification amendments and side letters, amendment to medical premium contributions, an amendment to the aquatics operator agreement, and amendment with M Group for preparation of Elections Code Section 9212 report. These previously approved items are reflected in the current year-to-date general fund position. This slide outlines the proposed mid-year expenditure amendments to the general fund. As part of the fiscal year 2025-26 budget adoption, staff incorporated revised estimation strategies to improve accuracy given elevated vacancy levels. This included applying a 14% vacancy and turnover factor and a 10% non-spendable operating factor to better align the adopted budget with anticipated staffing capacity and historical spending patterns. However, based on an updated hiring and retention trends, we are recommending amendments to both factors. Because these were incorporated as negative appropriations, reducing them results in a corresponding increase in appropriations. This refinement aligns the budget with actual staffing levels and ensures vacancy-related savings are realistically reflected in the general fund. We're also proposing an increase to the credit card fee appropriation due to higher than anticipated recreation program revenue and transaction volume. As part of the upcoming cost of service study, staff will return with recommendations to implement a credit card fee to help offset these costs moving forward. To partially offset the proposed increases, staff recommends pausing the Vehicle Internal Service Fund or ISF charge for 1 year and foregoing the additional discretionary payment or ADP towards the unfunded actuarial liability. Pausing the vehicle ISF charge will not impact vehicle purchases previously authorized by Council in November 2025, and the effect on the long-term fleet replacement plan is expected to be minimal. In total, the proposed expenditure amendments net to $5.2 million, inclusive of previously approved amendments before mid-year, bringing the amended general fund expenditure budget to approximately $84.6 million. Now moving to the proposed mid-year revenue amendments for the general fund. There are a few key items to highlight. First, staff is recommending a $1.7 million decrease in property tax revenue due to early recognition of the fiscal year 25-26 vehicle license fee backfill revenue, which were used to address a larger than anticipated shortfall in fiscal year 24-25. We're also seeing stronger development activity and business license tax collection citywide, and are recommending a $1 million increase in permit revenue and a $400,000 in business license tax to reflect current trends. In addition, the IT Internal Service Fund has accumulated fund balance over several years due to general fund over-allocations. Staff is recommending a transfer of a portion of that balance back to general fund to help offset the expenditure increases. We're also adjusting revenues upward to reflect a higher than anticipated room and field rental activity, as well as the technical amendments related to lease revenue recognition under GASB 87. In total, the proposed revenue amendments net to $3.4 million, bringing the amended general fund revenue budget to approximately $82 million. With $82 million in revenue and $84.6 million in expenditure budget, we're projecting a deficit of $2.6 million. You may notice that the proposed amendments result in an additional net deficit of approximately 1.8, right? Reflecting the 3.4 million in revenue and 5.2 in expenditure. But when combined with the original 0.8 million deficit already included in the adopted budget, that gets you to the 2.6 million deficit. This table here summarizes the proposed amendments across all funds. Within the special revenue funds, we're recommending amendments to reflect below market rate in lieu fees associated with 1162 El Camino Real, as well as updates to certain capital improvement projects. In the IT Internal Service Fund, we are proposing amendments related to equipment maintenance and network upgrades. And in the Solid Waste Fund, we are recommending additional maintenance worker position to support Council's downtown vibrancy priority. This table shows the projected 2.6 million deficit impact on the general fund reserve. Staff is recommending using the VLF shortfall reserve and a portion of the unassigned fund balance to offset the deficit, and reclassifying unrealized gains from unassigned to a separate assigned category in accordance with general fund balance policy, City Council Procedure 14-003. And the rationale is that unrealized gain isn't spendable until the investment is sold, so it belongs in a different assigned category. Under this approach, unassigned fund balance is projected to decrease from 5.8 million to 3.2 million. It is important to note that this deficit projection is based on current assumptions and may change as we approach end of the fiscal year. One significant factor is the ongoing utility user tax or UUT court case. In fiscal year 23-24, the city recorded the full 9.5 million in liability. Portions of that liability may be reduced pending final judgment, which could lower general fund expenditure in fiscal year 25-26 and reduce the projected deficit. Staff will continue to monitor as the case progresses. The city's 5-year forecast continues to show a structural deficit, similar to what was shared with Council on June 24th, 2025 during the budget adoption, though updated assumptions indicate the revenue expenditure gap has grown wider. Revenue pressures, including the vehicle license fee shortfall and ongoing loss of UUT revenue, combined with broader economic headwinds like lower consumer confidence index, expectation index, which are good indicators of how consumers feel about the economy, may affect some future revenue performance. On the expenditure side, rising personnel and operating costs, including the full absorption of payroll costs previously supported and subsidized by ARPA funds, are contributing to a more accelerated reserve depletion. However, the good news is that we're identifying these challenges early. That gives council time to hopefully consider options thoughtfully rather than reactively. This upcoming budget cycle will likely involve some difficult decisions, but they can be made strategically and in alignment with community priorities. General fund reserves provide short-term stability as we navigate through this period, but they're not a solution to a long-term structural imbalance. The focus will be on pacing adjustments responsibly to restore financial balance over time while aligning expenditure with available resources. Looking ahead, some relief is expected with the successor agency debt payoff in 2029, which means that the property tax previously allocated to debt payment for our successor agency will be redirected to our general fund through apportionment. One thing to note here is that property owners will see no change in their tax rate. Funds currently used for debt service will simply instead support general city services. The city is also exploring other potential revenue strategies, such as modernizing our business license tax to help mitigate structural deficit over time. Detailed numbers and recommendations will be presented at the March 21st Council workshop. Today's discussion is intended to provide context and help us start thinking strategically about our priorities. Grants continue to be an important component of the city's overall budget strategy, with $43.2 million in total grant awards, with more detail available in attachment G. Of the $43.2 million, $20 million is from federal awards, $10.4 million from state, and $12.8 million from local other awards. So the city's grant portfolio remains largely stable with no significant changes. Tonight, we're looking for City Council direction to adopt the resolution to approve these appropriations and amendments for the current fiscal year operating and capital budget. I also want to take this opportunity to highlight some upcoming key dates for the budget development process. We have the City Council Priority Setting Workshop on March 21st, Budget Principle Adoption and Direction for upcoming budget on April 14th, Public Budget Workshop on May 28th, Fiscal Year 26-27 Public Hearing June 9th, and the Budget Adoption on June 23rd. That concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time. We're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. I think we'll go to public comment at this time.
Thank you, Mayor Nash. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to provide comment on item I3, adopt a resolution to amend fiscal year 2025-26 budget. If you are in person, return that speaker card. Virtual, engage that hand feature. Calling in, please press *9 now. Final call for public comment on regular business item I3. Okay, we did have a hand raised, inviting Pam Jones.
Good evening. Thank you. This is, and I'm not sure how to frame the question, but this is regarding the RDA and the businesses that bought property in the RDA area. And I was never able to find out if there were some ruling. There was a rule on how they would be taxed because they were benefiting in the RDA area, and if it was appropriate for a company that is a multi-gazillion dollar, business. And I just always wondered if the businesses really were paying at the level appropriate for their businesses. as compared to the residents. And if that, and if the taxes for the, to pay back the successor agency, I think I have that right. If that was always the amount of taxes that residents normally would have been charged on their property if there was no RDA. And I know that can't be answered now, but I just do have some questions about how all of that worked. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no further hands or cards, Mayor Nash, you may continue.
Thank you very much. And I guess I'd like to start with, do you have any comments about the public commenters' question about the RDA and the taxes?
Sure, I
Thank
can
you.
try to answer that. So maybe I'll start with giving a little bit background on RDAs, right? So RDAs are redevelopment agencies. Common misconception is that potentially that they're paying different tax rates compared to other businesses or property owners. That's not true. So they pay the same tax rate as any other property owner. The difference is just that the tax increment within that area is used differently at the county level. So they put that, so let's see. So the Redevelopment Property Tax Trust Fund, RPTTF, which first pays the remaining bond debt and required obligation, it uses kind of a waterfall to treat the different tax increment, but they do pay the same rate.
Through the mayor. I believe what Ms. Jones was asking is if there's property that was in the RDA area, are they paying the same tax rate? Did they pay the same tax rate when the property was sold to them as folks who owned their property in the RDA area? So, and I can give you an example. If City Council Chambers is in the RDA area, and we sold it to Mayor Nash, does Mayor Nash pay the same tax rate as someone who still owns property in the RDA area?
Yes.
It's the same thing?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I do have another question.
City Manager Murphy.
Sorry, Mayor, I think you saw me reacting a little bit, but it might be best to kind of follow up separately about RDA in various scenarios, because whenever a property is sold, at that point in time, it gets reassessed. So that's where I was just kind of reacting to part of that response. But I think at a future meeting, we can just follow up on some of the specifics. But the initial response was accurate, is that people are paying the same rate. But when a property is sold, it does get reassessed to the...
As everyone else's does.
Exactly, yeah.
Correct.
Great. So there's parts of this are back to Prop 13, which is different than the RDA. Yep.
Thank you. Councilmember Taylor.
Thank you. I just have one other question, is if it's possible in a future agenda to have a link to the map of the RDA area. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. It is now open for questions and discussion if anyone has any. So I guess I have one question, and that's there were a number of sort of scenarios within the staff report that you're looking for feedback on that at a later date, not now. Is that correct? Right now, you're really focused on just this resolution.
Yes, so tonight we're focusing on the appropriations and amendments. The scenarios we're talking about under the forecast section, we'll bring back a little bit later on March 21st.
Thank you. Thank you. And I will just note that I thought it was a very well-written report that was very easy to understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Given the topic. Councilmember Combs.
Yeah, I just chime in expressing my support for the resolution. Budgets are mostly science, but I know a little art, and because they are projections and there are always be the need when you're making projections to come back and make amendments, and that's obviously what we're doing here, and they seem appropriate. Also appreciate the heads up as it relates to systematic or structural challenges as it relates to the budget, specifically inflow versus outflow, and how, you know, given the council the heads up and some time to really begin to think about like what are some ways we would start wanting to address that. So I appreciate it, and thank you for the presentation.
So would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I will make a motion. After Councilmember Schmidt, I think.
Councilmember Schmidt.
Thank you, Mayor Nash. So I had, well, I want to echo, thank you for putting together such a well-researched report. I had three kind of quick things. Start with the simplest. Could you remind me again the timing of the UUT case? I know that that's working its way through. Do we know, or do we have a sense of how that's pacing and when we might get a judgment back?
I'll take the first stab at that through the mayor. There's some preliminary rulings. There's going to be final rulings, and then no matter what the ruling is, it's subject to appeal. So that's the thing that we'll need to kind of pace ourselves on. This will be a still going to be a multi-year process. That said, once the city does receive the final ruling, hopefully this spring, we'll be able to kind of at least provide the council and the community an update on that, and that there's the potential that could impact the city's liability that we hold on the books. Even if a few years from now something changes about that, again, it's kind of what's known and probable and estimatable. There's a number of like technical terms from both the legal side and the accounting side that we would need to comply with, but hopefully in the coming months we've got greater clarity.
Perfect, thanks. The second topic, it's probably my favorite theme, is I'm still pretty worried about the amount of grant funding we're dependent on, and it was interesting to see a figure of $43.2 million, and 20 million of that is federal. Could staff describe what's kind of our early warning system to know if a particular grant source is in jeopardy, and what are some of our biggest areas of when you apply that sort of early warning system? What does it feel like are some of our biggest areas of risk when it comes to grants at the moment?
That's a great question. So 20 million of our federal award, I think all of them is related to public works. For early warning sign, we're tracking different releases at the federal level in news. But in terms of other early warning system, I have to probably have to do a little bit more research and get back to you.
Yeah, thanks. And I know that was a little out of the blue, but when I saw the number of 43.2, it just feels like an exposure that it's really tough to account for. So as we're thinking about our priorities, it would just be good to keep our finger on the pulse there. And then maybe the last point is more a request. I was actually happy to see that the appropriations we've made was only $697,000. I think I'd expressed this before. I get a little worried when we're allocating, hundreds of thousands of dollars in somewhat isolation, because I kind of expected that number to be more like 2 million or 2.2. I just lose track of how much we're authorizing when we get into these sort of somewhat siloed discussions about it. So maybe a request I would appreciate if staff would consider is, as we come to decisions over, say, $100,000 where we're appropriating, if there's a way to contextualize that for us and let us know, oh, by the way, so far you've spent 690, and this will put you at the million mark. And I just get worried because I tend to be fairly fiscally conservative, but I don't want to be Scroogish either. So without knowing kind of where we are and what kind of deficit we might be creating. So if there's a way to just provide a running total of that when it comes to making a little bit larger appropriations discussion, that'd be a useful mechanism to have to make sure we're staying on track. So that was my last comment. Thanks.
Any other comments? All right, City Clerk Karen, could you please call for the vote?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Nash. So I currently have a motion by City Councilmember Combs, pending a second at this time.
I seconded.
Thank you. So we've got a second by Vice Mayor Wise to adopt a resolution approving additional appropriations and amendments to the fiscal year 2025-26 adopted operating and capital budget. Any further City Council questions or discussion? Seeing none, please proceed with voting.
We have a little bit of a technical issue going on here.
Okay. Perfect. And the motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Excellent. So next we are at the study session. Study sessions are an opportunity for city staff to introduce an item that will require policy direction from the City Council in the near future. City staff will provide a presentation. I will then call for public comment. After public comment, the City Council will discuss the matter interactively with staff. The City Council will not take an action on items addressed in study sessions. The City Council may provide direction to city staff for preparation of additional analysis or information necessary when the item returns to the City Council for action. The study session tonight is J1, provide direction for a lease agreement for city property at 555 Ravenswood Avenue and provide direction on the framework for considering a longer-term lease. Here to introduce the item is City Clerk Judy Herron.
Yes, hello, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. The study session before you tonight is requesting direction on a lease framework for the gatehouse at 555 Ravenswood Avenue. For some background, the city acquired the gatehouse in 1969 with the goal of using the building in ways that benefit the community. In February of 1996, the city entered into a lease with the Junior League to use the gatehouse. The original lease was for 20 years, from 1996 to 2016, and included 2 5-year extension options. The Junior League exercised the first extension in 2016, which took them through 2021, and the second extension in 2021 through 2026. On December 16th of 2025, the City Council approved an extension through January 31st of 2027. Tonight, the City Council will be asked to provide input, feedback, and direction. The first consideration is should the city negotiate exclusively with the Junior League or issue an RFP to allow other community-serving organizations to propose future uses of the gatehouse. Next is the rent amount considerations, which are included but not limited to moving towards a market-based rent, alternate rent structures, or continuing the current practice with rent escalations. There's also a need to evaluate capital improvement responsibility in connection with lease length and extension options, as well as the possibility of electrification of the property. And then there's facility usage considerations for transparency, reporting, and city-affiliated or community-serving organizations. At the start of the Junior League lease, the monthly rent was $550, and the Junior League contributed just over $134,000 to help repair and renovate the gatehouse. Beginning in February of 2002, the rent increased every 2 years based on the CPI, or Consumer Price Index, bringing the current monthly rent to $1,071.41. A market-based rent approach will require comparing rents for similar spaces. As of February of 2026, Menlo Park office space averages between $5.83 to $6.16 per square foot. Given the Gatehouse's unique space and not a typical office, it would be considered at the lower end of office rents. Staff is currently working to verify the square footage of the Gatehouse. An alternate rent structure could include rental increases with the use of CPI, phasing to a targeted amount, or rent level considerations for tenants that are either community serving or strictly office use. There's also an approach to continue with the current rent and increases, such as annual increases, CPI increases, or at specific intervals over the life of the lease. When evaluating a longer-term lease for the Gatehouse, direction is needed around the responsibility of capital improvements and major building repairs. The current lease states that the Junior League is responsible for all interior and exterior maintenance, repair, janitorial services, and utility costs, while the city is responsible for maintenance and repairs of the paving, landscaping, and parking area. As an example, the Gatehouse is in need of a roof replacement, and with the unique and historic nature of the building, has an estimated cost of $600,000. One capital improvement responsibility approach would be for the city to take full responsibility for all capital improvements, and the tenant would be responsible for ongoing maintenance. The lease term could be shorter in duration with no automatic extensions, and a rent amount could be increased to compensate for the city-funded capital needs. Alternatively, the City Council could consider the tenant assumes full capital improvement responsibility and ongoing maintenance. The lease term could be longer with extensions approved by the city manager. Rent amount may be decreased as this approach lowers the city's costs, but it may be difficult for tenants to cover the full burden of capital improvement costs. Another approach is for the city and tenant to share capital improvement responsibility through a cost-sharing framework. Again, the lease term would be longer and extensions subject to tenant contributions to those capital improvement costs. Rent structure would be flexible depending on the framework for sharing capital improvement costs. The Gatehouse is enrolled in a PG&E program for a no-cost electric water heater upgrade. This must be completed by December of 2027. There may be an opportunity for electrification through the city's home upgrade services program, but this would require some coordination with PCE. In March of 2024, the City Council expressed interest in electrifying facilities like the BHCDC and residential type properties owned by nonprofits. So tonight, staff is also seeking direction whether or not to pursue electrification of the Gatehouse, although it is not a rental property used for housing. The Junior League lease allows for office and meeting uses with its nonprofit charitable activities, and subletting of the space is permitted with the city's prior written consent. This single tenant model creates one clear point of responsibility and still allows for the use of subletting. In addition of a reporting framework, could provide the city with regular summaries of third-party use, compliance checks, and priority access or lower costs for city-affiliated groups like the Friends of the Library or the Menlo Park Historical Association. The idea is not to impact the tenant's operations, but improve transparency. As the city considers lease terms, it would be valuable to clearly define expectations of transparency, tracking, and oversight of subletting while retaining the single tenant lease model. So again, tonight, staff is seeking direction on these key lease terms to be incorporated into a future lease. First is whether an exclusive single tenant lease with the Junior League should be negotiated, or if staff should pursue a competitive request for proposals process. The Junior League has leased and used the gatehouse for nonprofit community purposes since 1996, while issuing an RFP would give other organizations the opportunity to propose future uses for the facility. Staff is also seeking input on rent structure. Some of the considerations are market-based, alternative rent structures that fall between the existing rent levels and market-based rent, or continuing the current rent structure with escalations. Next is the responsibility for capital improvements and lease length. Should the city be fully responsible? Should the tenant be fully responsible? Or should there be a shared responsibility through a defined cost-sharing framework? Also, City Council direction is needed to pursue possible electrification through the home upgrade program. And lastly is facility usage and the potential for requiring reporting framework. This does conclude my presentation. Happy to answer any questions or open it up to public comment.
Thank you. City Clerk Karen, could you please call for public comment?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Nash. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to provide comment on our study session J1, direction for a lease agreement at 555 Ravenswood Avenue, also known as the Gatehouse. If you are in person, you can return that speaker card. Calling in, press *9. Virtual, you can engage that hand feature at this time. This will be the final call for public comment on our study session item J1. Seeing no hands or cards. Mayor Nash, you may continue.
Thank you. I would like to open it up for council discussion. Vice Mayor Weiss, would you like to start?
Thank you. Okay, so to go, thank you for this presentation, Clerk Heron. So I guess I'll just give an overview of where I'm at. I'm happy to continue with the exclusive negotiation with the Junior League. I'm happy with the rent structure as is, so continuing with the current 1,000 per month and some change, and then doing the CPI increase every 2 years. For capital improvement responsibility, I'm also happy to keep the current structure as is. I'm open to the longer lease, as was mentioned in the report, because I do know that the Junior League is willing to take on a lot of, or if not the entire roof repair, which I know is quite, it's a lot of money. But on the electrification element, because that is a city priority, I would be happy for the city to sort of take the burden on that. And then on the facility usage, I know there was something in the report about requiring the Junior League to report who is a subtenant and who is using it. I certainly don't want this to become burdensome to anyone, so I'm just more concerned about the tenants who are, I guess, like, not just one-off, like, they're hosting an event there, they're doing a community event. It's more like the tenants such as the Friends of the Library and the Historical Association who will also be using the space. So again, I don't really need reporting from the Junior League. I maybe just open communication to make sure that the space is being used, that the Friends and the Historical Society are allowed to use the space, and that relationship is working well, and the city can help in any way we need to. So I think that's it for now, unless Clerk Karen needs clarification from me, but I'll allow my fellow council members to give their.
Would anyone else like to provide input at this time? Councilmember Combs.
Thank you, Mayor Nash. So going down the list of where direction is being requested, I'm also in favor of exclusive lease negotiations. Generally speaking, I think as a public entity, we have a requirement and obligation to be very transparent and have clear processes as it relates to, all of the business that we do. And in a normal case where it's something that the city is doing as part of its regular business that clearly has a defined value in the marketplace, I would always default towards an RFP. This is a very specific situation where we're talking about a lease of a very old structure. It's not clear who in the marketplace would want this, what the exact cost would be, and are those people that we would want to use it? Like, right, if like some startup said that, hey, we want to lease it out, is that the right tenant that we would want? And so given those additional circumstances that exist in the situation, again, I favor an exclusive lease, although like I say, in most scenarios, if you're talking about a public entity, the default should be an RFP. As far as the rent amount, I am comfortable with the city exploring what would be an appropriate rent or lease arrangement. I don't want to suggest that the one that essentially was created 2 decades ago is one that has to exist now or represent current reality or a fair exchange for both the city and the junior league. But I also know that from the dais, I don't know what that would look like. I'm not an expert, but the extent to which city staff wanted to explore that, I'm totally supportive of it. Capital improvement responsibilities, like, again, generally I see a property owner as being responsible for major capital improvement responsibilities. But then that also means that like the revenue being generated by that has to be one that suggests that the major improvements will be covered. Again, I'm like, I'm open to the city staff working with the junior league and looking at many different options. I'm not, again, from the dais here tonight, going to say like, oh, let's take off one option or one way. I would say that let's explore what seems like a reasonable way. Again, we know the roof needs to get fixed. How that works. If it is something that where there's split responsibility but then also that improvement is reflected in an increased rental rate, that additional responsibility, then that may be it. It could be a scenario where the city doesn't take on any of the responsibility, but then we stick to something that's more akin to the current rental rate. Again, like I say, I'll let city staff and the junior league work that out in a way that I'm not going to take a position of trying to restrict those negotiations from the dais tonight. Electrification, if it is the city's desire to electrification going to happen, then certainly I think the city should pay for it. I would also remind the city of the agenda item we had earlier about our budget. And so we should sort of make sure we have that in mind as we're thinking about taking on additional responsibilities. But I wouldn't sort of obligate necessarily the junior league to take on some electrification project unless someone told me it wasn't going to be insanely expensive. Like again, I don't know if it is modest in price, and I don't know what modest would be. I could be supportive of either the city or the junior league doing it. But again, if it's going to be an enormous cost, then I think we need to pursue that thoughtfully. Facility usage, I've shared with representatives of the junior league directly. I would like to see more nonprofits, groups in the city make use of it. And so again, like I say, I would provide that as general direction from the dais. I'm not interested in, at this moment, like specifically like sort of outlining like how that would look. but just as one vote on the council, like I'd say, I'd like to see more organizations, more people in the city having said that like I've actually been in the gatehouse. I think is what I would see as a win. And so whether that's like programs that do outreach specifically to schools, whether that's additional nonprofits or organizations in the city. Again, I'll let you all decide, but I would like to. I think far too many residents in Menlo Park that I've run into have said I have never stepped foot in that building, and again, it's a publicly owned building, so I think we should be mindful that that's something we'd like to see changed. That's my feedback.
Thank you. Councilmember Schmidt.
Thank you, Mayor Nash. Following the structure here to kind of run down the list, yeah, I would also be supportive of exclusive negotiation. I think once a tenant and a nonprofit partner hits the sort of 10, 20, 30-year mark, we have a pretty good sense of what they're like in the city and as a tenant. So I feel like that's important. But I think I've said a number of times that I always want to provide special spaces for our nonprofit sector. They add to the vibrancy of the city, and it's often really difficult to manage these organizations, and they just add to the overall cohesion. So my preference would be when we have an opportunity to play a role in helping those organizations thrive, that we do that. The rent structure, I think that I also wouldn't want to really go toward a pure market-based approach. I think if our current structure plus escalations according to the consumer price index is working, that's totally fine. But like Councilmember Combs said, I think I'm pretty open if the city would like to explore alternatives as well, but I definitely wouldn't want a market-based approach to price out a valuable nonprofit. Would be my only ask to restrict that. The capital improvement, I think it would be prudent if the Junior League is willing to work on the roof repair, that we incorporate that into some of the negotiations, and we just use our best judgment on how to use that as far as offsets for rent or whatever that looks like. Also, not an expert, so I think it's great that they're willing to contribute in that way. The electrification, I think also agree that the city should take the burden. Although I would say that every opportunity we get to electrify a commercial space has a much bigger impact in the city. Our commercial buildings contribute 2/3 of our emissions from building emissions, and so it's our biggest area of opportunity in the climate impact space. And so any opportunity to take advantage of additional funds and go after the commercial space when it comes to electrification, I'm 100% supportive, and I hope that continues to come up throughout the year. And then the last thing is around facility usage. I would say it would be great to have a little bit more of an understanding. I agree with Councilmember Combs. I would love to see more organizations, particularly nonprofits, use the space. I think I've been in the space twice, and one of them was a tour as a council member of the city. Haven't been here long enough that I probably should have been in the building more often. So I feel that that's a pretty relevant point, that it's a little bit of a hidden gem that I think we could explore a little bit more and make it more open, hopefully to other nonprofits and organizations like it. So I think my feedback pretty much echoes the council so far, but wanted to add a little additional flavor. Thanks.
Councilmember Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Nash. And my position on the facility usage is to definitely have, since it's a city-owned facility, more transparency as far as the usage, and also more access to other nonprofits or community-based organizations, so that it is a shared space. As far as electrification, has anyone asked the tenant if they wanted the facility to be electrified? Since it is a city-owned facility, if the city has a standard to electrify its property, then I say, let's explore it. As far as the rent structure, I am comfortable with the current, to continue the current rent with the escalation. Just based on the previous budget item and the amount of money that the city receives in rent, which is about $14,400. I'm sure this will be revisited when we come to the city's budget. And it's not necessarily to become a market rate office space for our nonprofits, but just to consider looking at what an increase would look like, just based on the rental income for the city annually. And as far as the either exclusive negotiation versus an RFP, my concern with the RFP is potentially the junior league is not looking to relocate. And so would an RFP, if we're considering other organizations to rent that space, would they lose the space in that process? So I'm comfortable with having exclusive negotiations. Thank you.
So I guess taking it a little bit different order. I'm very interested in more access with the facility usage. And I have spoken with the Junior League president-elect, who has said that they are working with talking to the Menlo Park Historical Society, Friends of the Menlo Park Library, and the Menlo Park Library Association. And I would very much like those discussions to continue. I should say Vice Mayor Wise and I have been working together on this. I'm very interested in having more utilization of this space. I think the Junior League, jumping ahead, I actually am in favor of an exclusive negotiation for the Junior League, assuming that these other pieces can come together. But I think that it's an underutilized building at this point. It's city property and would very much like to see more use of it. And I think that the Junior League is very, very synced up with that agrees with that. So I would like to see that as part of the negotiations, but would like to see Junior League as the lead organization there, assuming that we can get others working together. Regarding the electrification, I think that is, I would like to see it electrified if we can use some of the $4.5 million grant state funding. If we can't, it's a whole different ballgame. So I see that as really part of the a desire of the city to electrify, and I do not want to see our budget money used for it, given the last budget item and all. But if we can use the $4.5 million, which I believe we likely can, I think that it would be wonderful to do that for many reasons. But that really is a city responsibility if we can use the grant, not to use other money. The capital improvements, the rent structure. I think that we need to know the square footage of the building, which I know that staff is looking into, and really what is the current rent what is the current monthly rate per square foot that we're currently doing. If we know that the $5.83 is what market rate might be, I'm not suggesting we go toward market rate, but I just think that we need to know where are we? And that should be part of the discussion. I trust staff can handle that if you need, and come back to the council as part of the lease agreement. But I'm concerned that at the state of our budget and with the VLF fee shortfall and all, and I would like to see this be at least cost neutral for the operations. And that also, as has been said, I think the Junior League has generously suggested that, or offered to do the roof, and I think that that would be part of it and certainly play into what the rental amount would be. But I would like to see this, if possible, be cost neutral to the city. and beneficial to the Junior League and other organizations. So I think capital improvement responsibility, I think, I don't know what is there beyond the roof. I think that if we identify items beyond the roof that need to be discussed, maybe that's something that is somehow worked out. If we don't know about them ahead of time, can be there can be something in the agreement that those will be discussed as they come up, as to how to whose responsibility, how to share that responsibility, what that would be. I had a thought and I'm missing it right now. But essentially, I guess, I would love to see the Junior League continue to have more groups using the facility, as everyone has said, and not to go into an RFP, which I think would be quite resource intensive. And I think that we have a very willing partner at this point with us. City Council Member Schmidt.
Thanks, Mayor Nash. I finally, apologies, I circled the word historic structure in my notes, but I forgot to write down the actual question I had, and I remembered it. Two-part, one really quick, I think I know the answer. The historic structure, is this a historically designated structure, protected, and then I think it is, but then the question is, does that in any way impact any of the considerations that we're making here tonight if it is protected?
Thank you for the question, City Councilmember Schmidt. So yes, the gatehouse is on the National Historic Register, and the items being asked of the City Council tonight are not impacted by the requirements of that.
Great, thank you.
City Clerk Karen, do you have other questions? Would you like to, can you sort of repeat back where you believe we are?
Yes, thank you so much for this discussion. It's been incredibly helpful in just how organized everyone was. I truly appreciate that. I did want to just kind of touch base on the capital improvement options that and approaches that were laid out. Currently in the lease, there really isn't any responsibility for either party, whether it's leasee, lessor, city, or tenant. The original lease with the gatehouse did include the Junior League contributing over $134,000 for renovations and repairs. So in the initial lease, that was in there. And so the city can look into doing something similar for either the roof or even future capital improvement projects. But did just want to provide that clarification that in our current lease, we really don't have a well-defined capital improvement responsibility. And then to City Councilmember Combs' point, if that be the case, does it land directly onto the owner? So just things for the city to consider and look into. The direction also that I see here is the exclusive lease with the Junior League to pursue electrification through the home upgrade program. We'll start looking into that and working with PCE to see if that is an option for the gatehouse. And then to City Council Member Taylor's point, making sure that that's something as well as that the tenant is comfortable with, understanding that it is a city-owned building, but just working with our organizations. For the rent structure, I believe we are looking at either like the current based rent or an alternative with either like a CPI or an annual increase of some kind. Again, taking into the fact the square footage, maybe not going to that full market rate, but finding out where we're at currently, and then just working with something that would be better fitted for a lease that is current opposed to 20 years in the back. We did touch base on the capital improvement, and when it comes to facility usage, looking into how to build into the lease more either advertising or reach out so we get more community groups in the gatehouse. And again, staff can kind of work through that, but I think that's the direction that we heard, that we want to get more people into the gatehouse to be able to use it. And obviously working with the junior league and their resources.
I guess I would just say, first of all, with the last point that you made, I believe that the junior league is actually positioned to work with at least some of the groups such as the Historical Society and the two library foundations, and is planning to reach out to them. So this would be in addition, if there's other groups that are in addition to that. I've remembered the one piece that I was thinking of, and that's in the lease. I would like to have it considered that if the city at some point needs to use this space, this land, which I don't think they would because it's historical, for housing, that there would be some sort of discussion, some sort of clause that would allow the city to, I guess, have an out from the lease if it was determined that we needed to use that for housing. Again, because it's a historical building and all, I think that that's unlikely, but I think that it would be prudent to keep that option open.
And I would say the majority of our leases, if not all, as well as our agreements, we all have like a termination clause. So that would be a part of
That
it.
handles it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Actually, go ahead, Councilmember Schmidt.
One small thing I was just thinking about, and maybe if the mayor's open to a modification of something that she said. I was reading this a little more detail around electrification. So it looks like one of the biggest ticket items will be covered by the government and K-12 energy efficiency program. And then there's this phrase in there about any remaining gas appliances could potentially be electrified through the home upgrade services program. I think maybe a very simple ask, if it's all right, is that as opposed to making an all or nothing, like if we can't use that program, then we're not going to continue electrification. I would prefer if we could maybe get a cost estimate to know, because if that turns into be like a $3,000 price tag, that feels very reasonable. So as opposed to an all or nothing, we're not going to go all the way. It would just be good to know beyond the PG&E program, how much more cost would be incurred to fully electrify, just to know that number, and then maybe potentially have a debate about the size of that number.
Well, and I think it's beyond the PG&E program and the city's home electrification program with the $4.5 million grant.
But if we can't use that, I think you were saying
If we can't
use
use
it,
it,
we're
then-
not going to proceed, but I would say,
Certainly.
could we get a price tag to maybe make that decision?
I
with
just wanted to add
electrification?
the home electrification program.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's listed in here, but I'd like to know what the price tag would be to get us all the way there, because if it's fairly reasonable, then I wouldn't mind at least having the number to know. Is that okay?
Yeah, as long as there's the majority of the city council who's agreeable, of course.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Combs.
Like I'm agreeable with it. That's also like how you end up in debt. Like I just want to see the number. Like just let's just put it on my wrist and see how it looks, and let me just go for a test drive. So, but I'm fine. You're right. Yeah. You know, we should see the number. The thing I was going to say as it relates to the outreach to or engagement with other organizations or entities, I think what I was thinking of is I know that there are the organizations you guys have already reached out, but some sort of framework for like how you plan to engage, or if organizations reach out to you, like how you could structure like a way where they could avail themselves of the space. And so I think more than anything, again, that's what I, again, just speaking for myself, be looking for some sort of framework or template for how you plan to approach those opportunities.
And I would add that currently the Junior League works with the Menlo Park Rotary Advisory Board, meets there monthly, and which I wasn't aware of, and that the Girl Scouts have also reached out to see whether they can utilize this space. So people are starting to reach out. I guess two other pieces. One is I fully agree with the comments that have been here, and I don't know that it was captured on the transparency. And I think that whatever uses, we need transparency for what is happening at the gatehouse and who's using it. And then the other one is going back to the capital improvement projects. I am concerned that the city does not get burdened with this if we have a reduced rent, if we are using it for a nonprofit and it works. And I want to make sure that somehow in there, it's not in a, certainly for the roof, that it is specified, and somehow that there's something in there legal, and the city clerk will probably figure this out, about how to approach capital projects in general. Councilmember Combs.
Yeah, my only comment there is again, like if we're approaching for an option of that there is zero cost to the city for the roof repair and the estimate is somewhat accurate, then I think what the Junior League is going to be looking for is a long-term lease that is very low cost. So I don't know if that's like that certainly is an option, the option that I would necessarily say from this moment that I would favor versus one where, again, maybe the costs are split. And so the rent does go up a bit, or maybe we take it on in total and the rent goes up to reflect that. I mean, I don't know, like, and so and maybe you are, I'm not at this point in a position to say where we are on that sliding scale, but I do know if we are on the sliding scale where they pay for the roof in total, then again, yes, they're going to be looking for a very low rent for a very, very long time, which, you know, and just so we all understand that. And if there's a majority support for that, then that's completely fine. Again, I'm not at this moment willing to say that that's the option that I would choose.
I agree with what you're saying. I think that's, yes. And I guess, Councilmember Schmidt.
Sorry, the longer the discussion goes, the more things I'm reminded of. I'm hoping this was sort of a reminder of something that happened back when I joined the EQC, and it's just a request to maybe explore it a little bit, but not spend a tremendous amount of time on it. I know we're talking about opening up the space to nonprofits and organizations and other groups like that. Back when I was the first commissioner, a couple of other commissioners and I were doing community outreach on climate and environmental stuff. It was really hard as residents to find a space to hold a community gathering like that. The library wasn't very accessible over time because it's reserved mostly for city-sponsored events. And this, even though we were commissioners, this was just our initiative, kind of, you know, climate rabble-rousers out there trying to get the word out. But it was really hard to find a space to do that. So maybe one request is just if you could explore that as a potential option. Please don't spend a ton of time on it. It might not be a great idea. It just, as I said, it reminded me how difficult it was to find a space, even as a private resident trying to help the city do outreach on climate action plans and stuff, and the libraries, which you would think would be accessible, you know, didn't allow that. So if this is a space that we could potentially do a little bit of that, it would at least be interesting to explore that as an option if it's possible. Thanks.
I would agree with that. If it's appropriate, I'd love to, I see several members of the Junior League here. I'm wondering if there's, would you like to make any comments? Does this sound reasonable?
Hello, good evening. I'm Christy Bonham, current president-elect of the Junior League of Palo Alto Peninsula. Thank you all so much for your thoughtfulness towards us as it relates to the renewal of the gatehouse lease. If there's anything that I could say first and foremost is that we are open. We know that the gatehouse is a city-owned property that is meant to be used by members of the community. And we all agree that there is an opportunity for us to do more in terms of raising the awareness and the profile of the availability of that space. I've been thinking about it. Some ideas off the top of my head is just like there has to be a direct link on our website where people can immediately be able to see that they can put in a request to rent out the building. Maybe there's something that even exists on the Menlo Park county government website that allows people to be able to point them to lease that. But we want to continue to be the single leaseholder. We feel that we've done an amazing job of being able to care for the building, to be able to be a good steward of it. But again, there's definitely opportunity for us to continue to do more. And we are willing and prepared to go ahead and to get the roof taken care of. We have a capital improvement fund that we have specifically set aside for the gatehouse that we have had since the 1970s, or I'm sorry, 1990s when we became the single leaseholder. So we are prepared to move forward to get the lease taken or to get the roof taken care of. And we want to because, again, there's a leak that's happening in the building right now. So the longer we wait, the more patching that has been happening, and we're ready to move forward and get that taken care of so that we don't have more compounded issues like mold and things like that happening in this historic building. But thank you. We really appreciate your thoughtfulness, and we're looking forward to continuing to work with the city manager and also with the assistant city clerk to get those items taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President-elect Bonham.
Thank you.
Do you need any direction as far as the length of the lease?
Yes, that would actually be very helpful. I know we have kind of touched on it, kind of based on what that rental amount looks like. So, I mean, staff can take that and kind of start there as we establish, that rent structure and how a longer or shorter term lease looks. If the city council has any feedback for a length term now, happy to take that. But again, understand that there are a lot of factors that kind of contribute to that.
I mean, I don't know how this all pulls together. My 2 cents is 10 years sounds sort of reasonable or we never know what other purposes, what's happening with the city government after that. But I also understand that the roofing is a big investment. So I would sort of leave that to you unless anyone else has other comments, but I worry about getting into too long, locked in for too long with so many moving parts in the city right now. Councilmember Council.
Yeah, I'd echo that. I'd only, sort of reiterate that like the flexibility will have a cost, like, right? I mean, if it isn't, I don't know, but let's say if the roof is, let's say, a $500,000 repair in 10 years, and that's like $50,000. Like, is that a fair return? I don't know. I'm sure the junior league guys will I'm sure drive a hard negotiation, but I don't know. Like, or would you want to like sort of, would that make more sense spread out over 20 years? Because then you're talking about $25,000 a year. I don't know, like, right? And so that's where I would say, like, I would, from the dais, it's hard, but I share your concern that, like, generally, like, I don't, as we had with the cooperative, of like, generally, like, I don't want to tie down public agencies to extremely long leases, where you have agencies that are governed by people who have to be elected, where you could literally have series of elections where none of those people have a say in a key element of the city or a contract because it is in a long-term lease. So I have a hesitation that you have, Mayor, but at the same time, I appreciate that, like, again, like I say, if they're covering that whole roof, they're going to probably want something more than 10 years. I'm not trying to negotiate against ourselves. They can negotiate for themselves, but that's just how I see it.
Councilmember Schmidt.
I think I think I'd rather see the numbers as opposed to kind of trying to pull a number out of the hat. I think I'd rather see some penciling out before maybe offering a little bit of guidance, because I'm with Councilmember Combs. It's 10 years sounds great, except that if the math turns into something that we don't really love, and I think it gives you the chance to also spend more time talking with the junior league to see how that pencils out. So I'd prefer to see it a little more written out first.
And that's actually one of the reasons why I'd like to see how the rent actually measures up to today's rent, not to impose a market rate rent, but just for some some perspective. Because one of the things that concerns me is locking into a longer lease, which then gets totally out of sync with what's happening. Anyway, just although this is a nonprofit organization.
Although my final comment is that I don't know what you can rent in Menlo Park for $1,000. Be very frank.
Thank you. Yes. All right. Thank you so much to the Junior League, to City Clerk Herron, and staff who've pulled this together. So next we have informational items. Informational items are transmitted to the City Council in staff's effort to provide an update on matters of importance to the City Council. Informational items are not action items. However, a City Council member, city staff member, or a member of the public may request to make a comment or ask a question on any of the informational items. City Clerk Herron, do we have any public comments on the informational items?
Thank you, Mayor Nash. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to provide comment on items K1, City Council agenda topics, K2, update on city's solid waste rate study, K3, update on the Menlo Park Municipal Water Rate Study, K4, the community-wide electrification project progress report, and K5, the 2025 Aquatics Program Annual Report. If you are in person, return that speaker card. Virtual, engage that hand feature. Calling in, please press *9 now. Currently have one raised hand. So this will be the final call for public comment on our informational items K1 through K5. All right, with that, we will be inviting Shannon. And if you could let us know your name again, as well as the item that you're speaking on, please.
Hi there, good evening. My name is Peter Lenhart, and despite digital appearances, it's not Shannon. I spoke with you before the holidays about the city's solid waste rates, with particular focus on the inequity built into the city's rates, namely single-family rates versus multi-family residential rates. Councilmember Combs was kind enough to suggest that I contact the city clerk to learn more about or possibly speak with the solid waste rate study group, and thank you for that. I did reach out. So I was happy to see the new rate increase recommendations no longer place the bulk of the increases on multifamily units, and I would very much like to thank the study group for that bit of fair-minded thinking. However, this does not address the nearly 3 times rate differential for the exact same level of service. Tonight, I would like to ask the council and the study group to focus on 2 additional inequities prior to receiving the study group preview, and certainly prior to accepting its recommendations. First, I would like to ask that the council recommend eliminating or modifying the requirement that multifamily classification begin at 5 units or more. The inequity here is in the amount of waste produced versus the amount paid. A building with 6 units often produces less waste, recycling, and compost than a house with a family of 4. We should mandate rates that encourage less waste, and the current structure encourages a single-family residence to be liberal with their waste output, all while charging multifamily residences nearly 3 times as much. Second, I would like to ask that the council recommend eliminating or modifying the maximum waste bin volumes that are required of commercial residences. Currently, the largest standard residential trash bin is required, and I believe this extends to the largest recycling and possibly compost bins. Clearly, this is a problem. The single-family residences have a choice in the size of the bins that they use and pay for. Why aren't apartment dwellers afforded the same option of reducing their costs? If we can make do with less, why are we being forced to pay for more? Failing to eliminate this requirement goes counter to 3 of the city's goals, namely reducing waste, treating residents equally, and keeping living here affordable. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to any comments.
Thank you. All right, seeing no further hands or cards, Mayor Nash, you may continue.
Thank you. Are there any comments from city council members? City Council Member Schmidt.
Thank you, Mayor Nash. One opportunity, I just will say that as a member of Rethink Waste's board and my assignment there, there's also, based on the last comment, an opportunity to make public comment a little bit more at source when it comes to Rethink Waste and ecology and all that. So if the member of the public who just spoke would like to do that, we're happy to pass on the details of when the next board meeting is and an opportunity to contribute at that level as well. But those are often those discussions are started there, and then they trickle down into the cities and they're negotiated with the cities. So there's an opportunity to carry those ideas forward to Rethink Waste itself. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Combs.
Yeah, I'd only highlight with regards to the waste study and the water study, these are informational items to both inform us and to inform the public of decisions and council items to come in the future where we will be providing action.
Thank you. Next, we have the city manager report with City Manager Justin Murphy.
Yes, Mayor, I may look to the assistant to the city manager, city clerk, Judy Heron, to repeat a couple of important announcements that she made at the beginning of the meeting.
Great. Thank you, City Manager Murphy. So as a reminder, we are currently recruiting for all of our advisory bodies. That recruitment is through Friday, April 3rd. You can visit menlopark.gov/commissions for more information, or of course, reach out to the city clerk's office. We are also working on the 2026-27 City Council Priority Setting Meeting, which is set for March 21st. We are accepting input forms from the public for that meeting through March 6th. So until next Friday, we've got an online form available at menlopark.gov/priorities. We also have hard copy forms available. You can either request that online, via email, via phone, or swinging by City Hall. That concludes my updates for now.
Thank you. Are there any city council member reports? Councilmember Schmidt.
Two quick things. One is we were at a commute.org board meeting last week, and a number of programs related to kind of multimodal transportation were discussed on the agenda. I would recommend that at some point we bring a couple of those into our formal agenda, just so we can debate if we're doing everything we can to support some of the commute.org initiatives and programs to increase transportation access. So I'll get more information from the group and then bring those forward as proposals that we maybe discuss them in a little more detail as a council, and if we want to activate on those. The second thing is just from an awareness point of view, I think I'm getting a lot of legislative stuff. It's a busy time in the state. If you're interested, Assemblymember Berman is working on a bill called AB 2313, the Home Energy Choice Act, which in a nutshell allows homeowners to have a choice to disconnect a line and save on energy costs and expenditures I'd encourage folks who are interested in this stuff to check it out. I think he's going to be getting it through committee and appropriations here pretty soon. And if you, of course, want to sign on as an individual, I know we don't offer resolutions much anymore as a city, but for those who are interested in supporting some of these kind of pieces of legislation, that's one to put on your radar. So thanks.
Thank you. And I have two reports. One is that Vice Mayor Wise and I last week went to the San Mateo County local officials briefing, and the purpose of that forum was to discuss significant developments in 2026 that impact all of our communities, including the vehicle license fee shortfall, the implementation of HR 1, homelessness, and anti-human trafficking efforts. So, and then also I attended an RMCP Resource Management and Climate Protection meeting, which is a CCAG meeting. And we had a very interesting presentation on the Bay Delta Plan amendments, the scientific basis report. The presentations were both from BOSCA and also from the Yosemite Rivers Alliance, which was formerly the Tuolumne River Trust, and had a very good, robust discussion there. And if anyone's interested, I actually have a copy of the presentation. So thank you. That we will adjourn at 8:33. Thank you.